Hello and welcome to DGT Podcast, Languages and Technology, brought to you by the European Commission's Directorate General for Translation. I'm Anna Holmén, and in this episode I am joined by two special guests, Anja Filko and Erik Oldenburg. Anja and Erik are two of the 27 winners in our annual translation contest for schools, Juvenes Translatores. Last November, they sat the contest at the same time as over 3,000 other 17-year-olds across the European Union, and they clearly did a very good job. Anja won for Croatia and Erik for Germany, which is how they ended up in Brussels in April, together with the other winners, for an award ceremony. You can watch it on our YouTube channel, Translating for Europe, and the live events. So all this gives us an excellent reason to chat about the contest, about being young in Europe today, and about languages, how to acquire them, what to use them for, and how they can enhance your life. So let's start with Anja. Could you tell us about your language journey?
Yeah, so my mother tongue is Croatian because I live in Croatia, but I've been learning English for so many years now, since kindergarten, and I mostly learned it through schools or some language schools or in my primary school. But in primary school, I also started learning German, and I really enjoy learning languages, and I would like to learn some other languages in future, like maybe French or Spanish. I'm not sure yet, but like French is really pretty language to me, so that's maybe my next language.
Okay, brilliant. And Erik, what's your language journey?
Yeah, so I grew up in Germany, but my parents are mixed language. So my mother taught me Russian when I was a small child, but when I went to kindergarten, the German kind of took over because I was hearing and speaking German all day and only German. And then kind of sadly, my Russian faded away over time as I stayed longer here. And then in third grade only, so not in kindergarten like with Anja, we started learning English. That kind of clicked already in the first lesson. But Spanish, which we learned in secondary school, kind of never interested me that much. So it was very difficult for me to find the motivation or the time to even master the language or improve at the language. And I do not take Spanish anymore at school. But English and German and Russian maybe in the future are the projects I'll continue working on.
Yeah, you said the key word is motivation, of course. You know, that's what you need to learn a language. And as the mother of bilingual kids, myself, I also know that what your friends speak, that is also what motivates you. So it's really hard if you're a parent and you're the only one who speaks a language to your child, to get the child to pick it up. You have to be really persistent, and then make sure it's really well planted. But I'm sure you have a very good start. I know if you decide to pick up on Russian again, it will come back to you.
Yeah, well, I think alone for learning languages, it's an improvement to grow up bilingually instead of monolingually, because you are just more in the rhythm of picking up new words and understanding the meanings when you have more languages that you have to adapt to early on. So I think that already gave me a head start for any language, if Russian, of course, as well.
Yeah, indeed, it's a gift when you can give your child a language. So let's talk about the contest itself. I'll just explain to the listeners a little bit about Juvenes Translatores. The idea is to add translation as part of language learning in schools and to give students the chance to try out what translation is all about as a way of promoting language learning. All participants translate a text from any of the 24 official EU languages into another of the 24 official EU languages. So you can end up with French into English, German into Croatian, Bulgarian into Spanish, and so on. And if we bring a little bit of maths into the picture, it's actually 552 possible language combinations. And normally in a contest, typical contest, we normally cover around 150 of those language combinations. And we're always very excited to see the most kind of exotic ones. And Erik, why did you take part in this contest and with which language pair?
So to put it simply, I just took part in the contest because my teacher apparently believed in me being able to succeed in the contest. That's also why I took, I guess, the most boring way. So to translate from English into your native language, so from English to German. And because the entire process was very, unprecedented for me. It's not like I could prepare because I wasn't expecting much. I was recommended by my teacher, and I just said, yeah, why not? It's a free contest, and I could try. I was not expecting to win, but it was a fun challenge because at school, like at least in Germany, you have to translate from German to English quite a few times. It's called a mediation. So that's a part of your like regular curriculum, but it's never the other way around. And it was very intriguing for me to try to translate into my mother tongue rather than into English at school.
We already spoke about the role that parents play, and of course, your teacher saw something in you and gave you that chance, which is brilliant. And
Yeah, I'm forever
Anja,
thankful.
yes. And Anja, why did you participate, and what was your language pair?
Well, I was in a similar situation as Erik, and it was really funny because we had also the school level of the competition because so many students from our school wanted to participate. So I didn't want to go, but also my teacher said that I have a big potential and that I need to go. And then I decided to participate like 5 minutes before it was the ending of signing up for the contest. And then I passed the school level, and I was really shocked because I couldn't believe I knew how great students were participating in the school level of the Juvenes Translatores. And I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to pass school level. And then I passed the school level. I was so shocked, but I thought to myself, there's no way that I would be the best translator in Croatia. But then when the results came out, I was really shocked because I didn't believe that I could do it. And also, I translated from English to Croatian, so also from English to my mother tongue.
Ah, there are quite a few important lessons in there. One is to
Yes.
always, try,
Yeah, and believe in yourself.
believe in yourself and try out, if you got a chance, why not take it? Because this is the contest we don't have any losers. No one is
Yes, yes,
lost.
yes, yes.
I mean, either you win or you don't. And also another thing you mentioned that there were so many other brilliant students, and I don't doubt that, but maybe to have a feeling for translation is a slightly different skill. It's maybe a slightly special skill that you wouldn't know that you have unless you try
You
it.
tried it, yes.
Yeah, because
Because I never tried translation before. We did it in our English class like month or two after the contest, and I didn't believe that I could translate from English to my mother tongue. I don't know why, but yeah, I didn't believe in myself, and I thought that it was really hard because of some expressions or idioms that we don't have equivalent translation in Croatia. Because in Croatia, you don't have like a lot of idioms, but we need to describe English idiom with a lot of words. So it's tricky to translate to Croatian in some situations. So I was a little bit scared, but I finished up it really fast, the translation, like in an hour and a half. And I was like, it was pretty like good feeling when I finished it because I was proud on myself, like I did this.
In English class, you're expected to write as formally as possible, as succinctly, as correctly as possible, and you're not really allowed to use these unofficial idioms or these sayings because it's said that's not really proper or proper English language because you're expected to be taught like university level English. But in this contest, it kind of tests your feeling more than your vocabulary because you do have a dictionary. You just have to
Yes.
know what fits. It's more like a gut feeling rather than what's wrong and what's right. That's why what I appreciated most about the contest, that you could test like a completely different skill set or a completely different skill rather than at school, where you're expected to be as academic as possible and not as similar to the tone and formality of the letter.
Yeah, and the good stuff is that there is no right answer. You can just like, the translation is some kind of art. You can do it freely, however you want. So that's the magic of it, I would say.
Yeah. It's true. It's combination of, to a certain extent, of course, a word means something specific which is set, but then you need to get the tone and the atmosphere and the nuance and all that. And I think you're also close to another thing that's really important to understand about translation. It's that you really need to know your mother tongue, or rather the target language, the language you translate into really, really well. You need, of course, to have a very, very high passive or active knowledge of what we call the source language, the language you translate from. But to be able to really get that whole register, to solve the tricky bits, because these texts that are written by our translators, of course, the English text, they know that it has to be really difficult because there are so many students in Europe today who have a very, very high level of English, and they really have to create a text with these typical kind of translation traps. And Erik, what was the biggest challenge for you when translating?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. Like, as I already said, matching the formality and the tone and the atmosphere, as you called it, of the text, I found most difficult because, again, I fell into the trap of trying to summarize the text or trying to give the essence of the text and not translating. So it's a completely different thing to translate the meaning 100% or to just boil it down to the most important thing, because you could have shortened the text without losing any information, but that's not the goal of the translation. Like normally it's drilled into your head that you have to summarize all the information and make it as efficient and as short and also as academic, as I already said, as possible, and not to match all the different sayings and the informal bits as well, and try to keep the structure as similar to the letter as possible. So keeping this balance between making it the most similar and not translating word for word, I found most difficult, but not in a negative way, rather in an intriguing way, because it's quite a challenge to like this very silver lining to navigate, to not be too informal, but also not too formal.
Yeah, and I can hear from both of you that you really learned what translation is all about. It's not translating word for word, it's translating meaning, but also nuance and atmosphere and one culture to the other. You know, what,
Yes.
yeah, what is this English way of expressing yourself? What is the feeling that the reader should get? And how do you give a Croatian reader the same kind of feeling? And sometimes you need to make something a bit stronger or maybe a little bit softer than in the original to reach that same effect in another culture.
Yes, the trickiest part is that you translate text when someone else reads your translation, that he thinks that some Croatian wrote it, that there is no translation in it. So I think that's the trickiest part. But yeah, and maybe, as I said, idioms were like the hardest thing to me, and a little bit of grammatics, because like grammatic in Croatia and in English, it's very different, because we have something that it's called padeži. It's like, if you know Latin, genus, and in English you don't have that. You have like just a lot of time tenses. So that is a tricky part when you are translating in Croatian, I would say.
That's also a thing that you have to learn and accept if you're doing translation, that you're supposed to be invisible.
Yes.
So think of that next time you see a translation. You know how hard someone worked to get there. You both won, and the prize you received for your top translation was a trip to Brussels for a few days. What were the highlights of this visit to Brussels? What was it like to be part of this mini EU, which the group of winners kind of constituted?
Well, for me, the highlight was meeting all 26 participants or winners from the other countries, because we like met a lot of people that are culturally different from us. We all took part in the same contest, and it was really interesting to learn about their culture, their schooling system, and it was really good because like every time at dinners or in commission, we were all together, not with our parents, not with our teachers, but the winners were all together, and then we had a lot of time to talk to each other. And we also made one Instagram group that we're all in, so we text sometimes.
Yeah, I think the mini EU was the most fascinating thing. So I'm not really much of a traveler normally. So meeting all the other participants, of course, Brussels was also very nice. But I think the mini EU was the most fascinating thing because that's something that you can never recreate by just looking at past photos or something. So the experience and the emotions of talking to the other people and meeting new people, I think you could never imitate in any other way. And seeing how similar but also how different the people are at the same time was very fascinating. So joking about stereotypes that others know from your country and kind of laughing about it and saying, yeah, that's kind of true, but maybe it's not really true after all, to acknowledge what the others were thinking of you or of your country, because you were almost like a representative for your country because only one person from each was there. So it was really fascinating to see what the others were going into, thinking of the country, of the people. But of course, everyone was very open, and it was all on a very like humorous level. It's not like anyone was disrespectful to another person just because of their country. More like the other way around, of course. We are all very open-minded people.
Yeah, and I suppose there are also countries in the EU that you don't really have any stereotype at all about because you don't know so much about the country. And then you meet a representative of that country, and maybe it's someone that you get on with really well, and that opens up a whole new door. Because then you will always, I mean, if I know someone from a country and I see something in the news about that country,
Yeah, you would
I
link
mean,
it up with
yeah, I
a
mean,
person. Yeah.
I read the article and I think of this person. I say, okay, so how does this affect this person? It really widens your kind of mental world as well to know someone from a country.
Yeah, and the cool thing that we did, we made like a Spotify playlist, and every one of us put like one or two or three songs from our country that a lot of young people are listening to. So now we have like a big playlist with all songs from EU. So that's also really cool.
We're all European. You could almost say like we share a home country. In my opinion, I never felt like anyone was from a different country, maybe other than the accent you could hear by everyone. Of course, no one of us speaks like perfect English. But other than that, I think we shared so much in how we grew up and all the values we share. I didn't really feel like anyone was from a different country because we were all so similar. So I really appreciated how that kind of went away as soon as you got to know the people and you didn't only read their name tag with the country they're from, but you could associate it with the real person, and then everyone was extremely similar, I would say.
No, that's really beautiful. Truly European experience then. And what are your next plans? Did the Juvenes Translatores experience influence you in any way? So the way you think about your future, or you stick to the plans you had before?
For me, languages are a big part of my life, and I would like to learn more languages, but I don't see myself like that would be my job or something. But I think that like language, there is one saying in Latin and in Croatia, the more languages you know, the more you are worth it. So I think that is true, and that you need to learn a lot of languages. But at the end of the day, I don't think that that's my call in life. I don't think that I I would like to work something with languages, but I want to study acting academy. So for that, the language, also the mother tongue, Croatian, it's really big part. So I need to read a lot in Croatian, but I also read in English. So I think that like through that job, my languages will show in some kind of way.
Oh, and I assume that winning this contest gave you some confidence, if nothing
Yes,
else.
definitely.
Yes. So you want to be an actor?
Yes.
Okay. Well, keep in mind, translating plays. That's
Oh,
something you
yeah.
always, oh, so that could be something in the future, you know. I see that plays are often translated by the theater people who
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
happen to have the academic background of the languages. So, never say never, might well come. And then you need to translate also the type of everyday language that you were also
Yeah, I agree.
testing to. So I can imagine that being interested in theater helped you also to create a fluent spoken Croatian.
Yes, because you need to be like really eloquent to do like theater, and you need to read a lot, and we read a lot on acting classes, and I read a lot of at home. So I think that really built my vocabulary also from English and for Croatian, and I think that's like the big part in my translation, because for some idioms I saw it a lot of times in books, so then I can remember it, and then like my vocabulary is getting bigger and bigger.
I aspire to study the most international language. I think I'm leaning a bit far out of the window here. But the most international language of math, I want to study after school. But you'll never like really be successful if you only know math. So the real, I guess, human language of English and German is of course very important. But I think, as you already talked to Anja about, the confidence aspect of the contest was the most important thing, because you just get the possibility of proving yourself, even if you never thought you would win. As we already said, we both never expected to win, and to just have the experience of trying something where there's not really something you could lose if you try, and just saying, yeah, why should I not do this? Why should I not try this? There's nothing happens if I fail. I think this is the most important takeaway. Even if we don't want to study languages themselves, we will always rely on languages heavily, and the experiences will probably shape our future decisions and our conscious decision making about like contests or big things where you're not sure about yourself. So I think that was the best takeaway you could have.
Yeah, we have a slogan that we use quite often at the Directorate General for Translation. We used it for years, and every time we look at it and think, should we change it, we always come to the conclusion that this really says it all. It's languages take you further. So it doesn't have to be languages in themselves that is your career, but if you can add languages to your CV or to your life experience, it will always, you know, like you said, Anja, about Latin, it adds to your personality, to your life experience, and so on. So this was already great promotion for the next round, Erik. Thank you very much. Do you have anything else you would like to say to kind of promote Juvenes Translatores for the next round of schools and students?
Also, I think the first thing to say is that even if you are even close or remotely close to being recommended by your teacher, you could even go up to them if you know about this contest and ask them for preparation. Because I think that it doesn't have to be like at my school, where the people are not asked and there's no information about the contest beforehand, but the teachers just pick out the best students from this year, so 08 this year. So maybe if you wanted to participate, you could ask your teacher, and they could probably give you a mountain of resources to help you practice for translation and your vocabulary in both languages. So I think that's the first aspect. And the second aspect in general is, if you learn a different language, as you already said, it takes you further, not only in how you can communicate with other people, but also, in my opinion, how you feel about other things. Because just the way the words feel or they sound as other people speak them, how topics are talked about in different languages, is just so fascinating, because it's so entirely different from your own mother tongue, and how every language interprets cultural features or authors or books. You could never experience a real English book without reading it in English at least once.
I would also definitely encourage schools and 17-year-olds across the EU, but in particular in Croatia, to take part in Juvenes Translatores, because I think it's a beautiful experience. And even if you don't win, it's a beautiful experience to challenge yourself. And it's unique experience because you don't get that in school. You can also improve your language skills by preparing for Juvenes Translatores. And also, if you win, you can meet those amazing people from different countries, meet their culture, and I think that's beautiful.
Oh, that's great. And actually, what we hear from participants or participating schools, teachers, even just doing the contest at the same time as everybody else all over Europe gives this kind of special feeling that
Yes,
you know
magical
that we were
feeling,
all,
yeah.
yes. So even if you don't win, you get a bit of a European experience. And this coming round of Juvenes Translatores is actually the 20th anniversary. So do you have any tips for us? How should we mark the 20th anniversary?
Well, maybe I thought about some cultural workshops that like each country has a workshop with their translators. I think that would be cool because like we had a whole one afternoon with our translators, but I think that it would be even cooler if I could maybe meet some other translators from like, I don't know, German because I learned German, or like French because I'm interested in French. That would be also really cool.
I think just having one day after meeting the people and having gotten to know them would be just so valuable to maybe make plans in the city or like go somewhere, because of course the schedule had time to talk with people, but after you've gotten to know them, you kind of want to have another experience in Brussels.
Thank you so much for your time. Juvenes Translatores is supported by the EU's Erasmus Plus program, which supports education, training, youth and sport in Europe. So look up the Erasmus Plus website and see what other opportunities there are. Thank you for listening to the DGT podcast, Languages and Technology. Stay in touch and share your thoughts or questions with us on Instagram or Facebook at Translating for Europe. And don't forget to subscribe in your favorite podcast app to stay up to date with the latest on multilingualism and translation in the EU. I'm Anna Holmén. Until next time.